Leo lived in a quiet town in Georgia, but his life was far from busy. At just 17, he had already earned a reputation as the laziest boy around. He skipped school regularly, left his homework untouched, and spent most days curled up in bed or lounging on the porch, watching time slip by. His mother used to plead with him to get up, to try, to care, but eventually, even she stopped. Teachers had long since written him off, assuming he'd never amount to anything. His childhood friends drifted away, tired of his excuses and absence. But what no one saw was the truth behind Leo's laziness. It wasn't that he didn't care. In fact, he cared too much. Every time he thought about trying, a voice inside told him he'd fail. Every time he considered starting something new, anxiety tied him down. He was afraid of not being good enough, afraid of judgment, afraid of disappointment. So instead of facing those fears, he chose to sleep them away. It was easier to do nothing than to try and risk failing. He wore his laziness like armor, pretending not to care so no one would see how deeply he did. Beneath the surface, Leo was full of unspoken dreams. He wanted to be more. He wanted to belong. But years of doubt and silence had convinced him that effort was pointless, that the world didn't expect anything from him, and maybe didn't want anything either. So, he hid from life, not because he was lazy, but because he was lost. And in that quiet loneliness, Leo waited, though he didn't yet know it, for something or someone to wake him up. The rain fell hard that afternoon, drumming against the rooftops of Leo's sleepy town. With nowhere else to go and nothing to do, Leo ducked into the public library just to get dry. The warmth inside felt like another world, quiet, calm, and filled with the scent of old books. He hadn't set foot in there in years. As he wandered between the shelves, he noticed a man sitting at a table by the window. He was elderly, with silver hair, thick glasses, and a white cane resting by his side. Despite his blindness, the man's face held a quiet joy. When he heard Leo shuffle by, he smiled and said, "You hiding from the rain, or from life?" Leo hesitated, unsure how to respond. The man introduced himself as Mr. Reed. "I lost my sight when I was 25, he said, "but I still read every day." Leo raised an eyebrow. "But you can't see. Why bother?" Mr. Reed chuckled, not offended in the least. "Because stories keep me alive. They let me travel, feel, remember. Stories give me purpose. And purpose, young man, is the cure for laziness." Leo had never heard anyone speak like that before, not with regret, but with hope. Mr. Reed couldn't see a single word, yet he understood them more deeply than anyone Leo had ever met. For the first time in a long while, Leo didn't feel judged. He felt curious. He sat down. What started as shelter from a storm turned into the beginning of something much bigger. Leo had just met a man who couldn't see the world, but somehow saw right through him. The library, once just a shelter from the rain, became Leo's new refuge. Every afternoon, he found himself walking back through those doors, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Mr. Reed would be waiting at their usual table, with 2 steaming cups of coffee from the machine in the corner and a book ready for reading. At first, Leo stumbled through the pages, unsure of himself, reading in a low, hesitant voice. But Mr. Reed listened intently, nodding, smiling, asking questions that made Leo think deeper. Soon, 5 minutes turned into 30, and 30 into hours. They laughed over stories, debated characters, and shared quiet moments between chapters. Then one day, in the middle of a simple novel, Leo read a sentence that stopped him cold. "Comfort is the enemy of growth." The words hit him harder than he expected. He lowered the book slowly, staring out the window. Mr. Reed, sensing the silence, asked gently, "What did it say?" Leo repeated it, voice soft, almost uncertain. "Comfort is the enemy of growth." In that moment, something shifted. The laziness he'd carried like a second skin suddenly felt like a heavy mask, one he didn't want anymore. Maybe he hadn't been lazy. Maybe he had just never believed in himself enough to try. With Mr. Reed's quiet encouragement, Leo set a small goal: wake up at 7 a.m. every day. No excuses. It wasn't easy. His body protested. His mind rebelled. But every morning he fought the urge to sleep in, and every night he felt just a little stronger. One small step led to another. He began reading on his own, writing little notes in the margins, asking more questions. Slowly, Leo wasn't just showing up, he was growing. Spring had finally arrived, and sunlight poured through the tall library windows, casting warm golden patches on the wooden floor. Leo, now a familiar presence at the reading room table, had changed. He sat straighter. Spoke clearer. His eyes no longer drifted with boredom but focused with curiosity. That morning, Mr. Reed reached into his worn leather bag and placed a sealed envelope in front of Leo. "I've been waiting for the right day," he said. "I wrote this the first week we met. I knew you'd get here." Leo looked confused, then cautiously opened the envelope. Inside was a printed application for a creative writing scholarship at a community college nearby. Leo's hands trembled slightly. "A writing program? But I'm not a writer." Mr. Reed chuckled. "You already are. You just don't know it yet. The way you read, the way you question characters, the way you reflect, that's writing, Leo. That's the heart of it." Leo stared at the paper, overwhelmed. 100 doubts raced through his mind, but for once, they didn't stop him. Because someone believed in him more than he believed in himself. That night, instead of sleeping in or drifting off like he used to, Leo sat at his small desk by the window with a notebook and a pen. The moonlight lit the page as his thoughts spilled out, clumsy at first, then steady. He wrote about fear. About laziness. About purpose. He wrote about Mr. Reed. The boy who once slept through life now stayed up all night, chasing his dreams with words. The auditorium buzzed with excitement. Rows of proud families, flashing cameras, and bright-eyed graduates filled the room. On the stage, Leo stood behind a polished wooden podium, a gold medal gleaming against his chest. The same boy who once slept through life was now the valedictorian of his writing program. He took a shaky breath, scanning the crowd. And there, near the back, calm, still, smiling, was Mr. Reed. Time had deepened the lines on his face, but his spirit was unchanged. He nodded, as if to say, "I told you so." Leo gripped the edges of the podium and began, voice quiet but strong. "I used to be lazy," he admitted. "At least, that's what everyone thought." The room hushed. "But the truth is, I wasn't lazy. I was lost. I didn't need lectures. I didn't need pressure. I needed someone to believe in me." He paused, his voice trembling. "Mr. Reed believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And that changed everything. The cure for laziness isn't motivation. It's belonging. It's connection. It's kindness." For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then, applause erupted, loud and long, echoing through the hall. Some wiped away tears. Others just smiled in awe. Leo stepped down from the stage, not as the boy everyone once doubted, but as a young man who had discovered his voice, his worth, and his place in the world. And in the back of the room, Mr. Reed sat quietly, his cane resting at his side, pride glowing on his face. He didn't need to see Leo to know. The boy had finally woken up. And he had been cured, by kindness. Leo's journey wasn't about suddenly becoming hardworking or chasing success overnight, it was about discovering something far deeper. For years, he had been trapped not by laziness, but by fear and self-doubt. What changed him wasn't a strict routine or tough love, but a simple act of kindness from a stranger who saw his worth before he did. Through stories, quiet encouragement, and a single line, "Comfort is the enemy of growth," Leo slowly woke up to life. He took small steps, failed, tried again, and kept going. And when someone handed him a chance, a scholarship, a belief, a purpose, he didn't sleep through it. He embraced it. This is the true cure for laziness, not shame, not force, but belief. Belief in our potential. Belief that someone sees us, understands us, and cares enough to help us grow. Mr. Reed didn't just teach Leo to read. He taught him to believe. And that belief lit a fire in Leo that no storm, no fear, and no past could ever put out. In the end, Leo's story reminds us all, sometimes, all it takes to change a life, is for someone to care.